Volunteers and American troops were tearing each other apart on the ground. The cannons could be heard around the world. But what the world did not know at the time was this. In the sky above them, something else was happening. For the first time in human history, massive jet-on-jet warfare was unfolding, and it was happening in complete silence. Neither side would admit it. This secret stayed buried for 40 years. See today more clearly. Welcome, Amazing Life Chanel. The Cold War has entered its 5th year. It is 1951. Korea. The war grinds on. Last episode, Truman fired his insubordinate general, MacArthur. The front line has stalled near the 38th parallel. Today, episode 23. The Secret in the Sky. Secret 1. The sky itself. After Truman replaced MacArthur, the ground war fell into a bloody stalemate. But in the air, one side had already won. The US Air Force had assembled more than 1,100 aircraft, including the B-29, the F-80, and the F-84. Every bomber group targeted supply lines and bridges, dropping hundreds of tons of bombs every single day. Chinese and North Korean troops had almost no air cover left. China's brand new Air Force had only 117 combat aircraft, and most pilots had never touched a jet. An urgent telegram raced to Beijing, then landed on one desk in Moscow, Stalin's desk. This was a brutal calculation. Refuse to help and the front collapses, Western troops stand at the Soviet border. Send the Air Force openly, and it means 2 superpowers at total war. Only 5 years after World War II, the Soviet Union could not survive a direct war with America. So Stalin chose a third path, a secret one. He refused to send troops publicly, but quietly approved something else entirely. Secret 2, the men without names. In secret, the Soviets formed the 64th Independent Fighter Air Corps in northeast China, with orders to defend only, protect the supply lines, and leave no trace. On November 1st, 1950, Soviet MiG-15S appeared over Korea for the first time. On November 8th, a Soviet pilot shot down an American P-51. The air war had begun, and this unit would not appear in a single public record for decades. Every pilot handed over his military ID, his personal letters, anything written in Russian. They swapped their uniforms for plain Chinese jackets with no rank insignia. False names replaced real ones. Even their aircraft were disguised, the red star on every MiG's wing painted over and replaced with Chinese markings. On paper, this air force did not exist. Radio communication was the hardest secret to keep. Pilots were ordered to speak only a foreign language in combat. But try telling a man locked in a death spiral at 10,000 meters to shout in a language that is not his own. The radio channels filled with unmistakable Russian. Vanya, watch your 6. American listening stations picked up every word. Secret 3, MiG Alley. Between the Yalu and Chongchon rivers lies a stretch of sky roughly 6,500 square miles. American pilots called it MiG Alley. Anyone who flew in there knew one thing: get ready to fight. This was the first time in human history that jets battled jets on this scale. Most Soviet pilots were veterans of World War II against Germany, and their fighter divisions were stacked with aces, including a 3-time hero of the Soviet Union. They flew out of Antung, right on the Yalu River, so close that on clear days, American pilots could see MiGs lining up and climbing out from miles away. The MiG-15 was the best fighter in the world at the time, the first jet with a cannon strong enough to tear through a B-29's armor. On April 12, 1951, the US sent dozens of B-29 bombers to hit the Yalu River bridge. The Soviets scrambled 60 MiGs across 3 regiments and in 40 minutes tore the bomber formation apart. Soviet pilots remembered looking up and seeing American parachutes everywhere. America called it Black Thursday. After that day, US heavy bombers never flew over MiG Alley in daylight again. Secret 4. The invisible leash. Soviet pilots fought under one iron rule: never fly beyond communist-controlled territory, never cross south of Pyongyang, never fly over open water. The reason was simple: if a Soviet pilot went down over enemy territory and was captured alive, the secret would be over. One pilot, shot down deep in enemy territory, chose not to be taken. He pulled his pistol and turned it on himself. Today, 200 and 2 Soviet airmen lie in the Soviet Martyrs Cemetery in Lushan, China. By spring 1951, the Americans already had all the proof they needed, having heard Soviet voices on the radio for months, and quietly, Washington made a choice of its own: silence. The White House issued a strict gag order. No officer, no soldier could speak of Soviet involvement. Truman understood the danger. If the public learned the Soviets were fighting directly, Congress could be forced to declare war on the Soviet Union itself. And with both sides stockpiling nuclear weapons, a local war could spiral into something unthinkable. So 2 superpowers made an unspoken pact: bury the truth in the sky, together, fight to the death, but never say so out loud. This silence would repeat again and again across the Cold War, until the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991 and the files finally opened. Secret 5. The Forgotten Heroes. Over more than 2 years in Korea, roughly 70,000 Soviet airmen rotated through the 64th Air Corps. By the Soviet General Staff's own late account, the unit lost 335 aircraft and 120 pilots, flying more than 60,000 combat sorties. Among them rose true aces, including one with 22 confirmed kills. Every great power struggle rests on men whose names nobody ever learns. When these pilots came home alive, there was no parade, no flowers. Only a lifetime of silence they were bound to keep. For decades, even to their own families, they had to describe those years as routine weapons testing in the Far East. Their medals sat behind a locked door in the Kremlin, and in Lushan, the young men buried there carried their true identities into the ground with them, unnamed for 40 years. Not until the Soviet Union fell in 1992 did the files begin to open. This was the only time in the entire Cold War that 2 superpowers fought each other directly, at scale, in the sky, and buried it together for almost half a century. The war on the peninsula was still far from over, and neither side had truly won. So both turned to building something even more terrifying, a weapon 1,000 times more powerful than the bomb that fell on Hiroshima. The countdown had already begun. A few months later, on an island in the Pacific, humanity would witness for the first time a weapon that could burn the sea itself dry. If you enjoy this kind of deep dive into Cold War history, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Amazing Life so you never miss the next episode, and drop a comment telling me which Cold War secret you want us to uncover next. And turn on the notification bell so you catch every new episode the moment it goes live. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.